Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the breakup map, flood warning there on the Kuskokwim's been canceled there on Kalskag, and everything seems to be progressing along in a very orderly fashion. Otherwise, got some high water going on the Chena River up there around the Fairbanks area. Or in the greater Fairbanks area on the Chena River, and that additional snow melt could result in possible flooding over the next several days there. Otherwise, everything's still progressing slowly here for the southern rivers, and of course nothing up north has started to break up. The Yukon still waiting at Dawson there for any movement of the ice. And for the satellite imagery today, large low pressure area here covering much of the Bering Sea. Center there, just west-southwest of St. Paul Island. Front here, right along the Nunivak Island coast there, down across the Alaska Peninsula. Rain, gusty winds ahead of that. Winds not all that strong. Augustine Island had gusts to about 45 miles an hour, as did Cape Newenham. And rain also associated with this up across southwest interior. Pretty light up through here, and then some more moisture up northern Seward Peninsula area, up toward Kivalina, and then eastern Arctic coast. That's just cloudiness there, mid and high level clouds. Good sunshine here, areas of sunshine with some clouds mixed in there for the eastern interior of the state, and variably cloudy skies, but dry over the southeast coast. Next system just down there to the south, you can see really sliding northwestward here. But this area of moisture eventually is going to spread some rain up into the area. Actually, it got some showers going on this afternoon around the Queen Charlotte Islands, about ready to move into the Dixon entrance area, right about there. And otherwise, this first batch of clouds really non-rain producing, and still a fairly nice day down there with light winds. High pressure, weak high pressure at the surface here over the Copper River Basin, mostly sunny there, up through the eastern interior, and pretty good conditions back to the northwest as well. Could be a few showers right up through here. And then rainfall amounts pretty light, especially over the inland areas. Even along the coast, just generally less than 1/10 of an inch or just a few hundredths. A little heavier, as I mentioned there. Kodiak picking up about 1/2 inch of rain. Some light precipitation reaching the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, possibly in the Cook Inlet. Otherwise, just showers up the Alaska Range there. Scattered isolated showers along the Alaska Peninsula, and then showers extending with fairly gusty winds, 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts there. Could be some 45 mile an hour wind gusts back to the west or towards Chimianatu. And snow changing and mixing with rain this afternoon for the St. Lawrence Island area. But again, amounts are quite light. And looking at the forecast for tonight, the front edges inland here, so those gustier, stronger winds will diminish considerably on down across Kodiak Island. Just about no gradient at all on this scale here for the western Gulf of Alaska and into Bristol Bay there. But rain will continue with the front just along the southern and southwest coast, southern Shelikof Strait. But coming inland, so rain tapering off in the outer coastline of the Yukon, or the mostly from Nunivak Island on down into Bristol Bay, across Cape Newenham. Back to the showers and breezy conditions, but not quite as windy here for the central Aleutians, and maybe 15 to 25 miles an hour for the Fox Islands, even lighter for the Alaska Peninsula with more isolated showers. Showery and not too breezy for the Pribilof Islands. Strongest winds will be back over the western Aleutians. Could see gusts 40, maybe 45 miles an hour in those areas. And then rain starting to creep up the coastline here with that next front's right over the Queen Charlotte Islands. And then tomorrow that makes a slow, short jog northward. maybe reaching the central areas there, possibly Petersburg, maybe a little bit better chance for Wrangell, on out to possibly as far north as Sitka, and again on down to the south. Looks like a wet day tomorrow. Winds light though. Could see some more sunshine, or it could be a mostly sunny day. Mid and high level clouds spreading into the northern panhandle. Very nice conditions here over the eastern interior. Temperatures rising in the 60s in some areas, and that dry, mostly sunny skies will extend northwestward, possibly up to the north slope, maybe the Arctic coast. Be some areas of low clouds there along the outer coastline. But it looks like periods of light rain for the St. Lawrence Island area. In this front, the precipitation field holds together pretty good, but it's not heavy precipitation at all. Heaviest will be along the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Some of that will work up into western Prince William Sound with areas of light rain along that front in advance of it. And showers in, again, breezy for the Aleutians. Next day on Thursday, remnants of that front rotates up into the North Gulf Coast. This low coming northward, 970 millibar low. And that's going to force a surge of moisture in from the leftover from that front up to the North Gulf Coast for periods of rain there. Heaviest along the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, Seward, on back into Homer, into Kachemak Bay, much lighter here, Cordova, on into the northern panhandle. And then the other portion of the front rotates back here as the low tracks up to the Bering Strait. And that's just going to be a few showers by the afternoon on Thursday there with that leftover moisture. Otherwise, variably cloudy, partly sunny south of there from Yukon Delta into the west central interior, staying sunny and mild here over the eastern part of the state and even the north slope as well. And again, windiest conditions, could see gusts 40 miles an hour to the north-northwest here with scattered showers. Central Aleutians drying out with less wind as you get in toward that ridge of high pressure out over the far western Bering Sea. Otherwise, southeast coast, southern areas now, that again, that moisture either slips on off into Canada and dissipates or links up with this one and pulls to the north. So a risk of a few showers in the afternoon over the northern panhandle. Otherwise, mostly sunny and mild there over the central and southern southeast coast. And for the lows tonight down that way, anywhere from the lower 40s to maybe the lower 50s in the south, with upper 30s to mid 40s for southern Alaska here, south central Alaska, upper 30s in the central interior Tanana Valley, lower 30s Yukon Flats, low 20s Brooks Range, and teens for the North Slope and Arctic coast, with upper 30s, lower 40s in the southwest here, 30s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, as well as the Bering Sea. And for the highs tomorrow, 60 to 65 or better here over the central and eastern Tanana Valley areas, up into the Yukon. Fort Yukon forecast high around 60, upper 20s for the Arctic coast, upper 30s along the southwest coast, but rising toward 50 over the inland areas, with McGrath forecasting 61 for the high, near 60 in the Susitna Valley, with 50s to near 60 for the Matanuska Valley, 60s over the northern panhandle, and then with that rain coming in, mid to upper 50s down to the south. And then for the lows the following morning, 45 to 50, or mostly in the 40s for the panhandle, mostly in the mid 40s for southern Alaska, teens in the north, and then the highs pushing into the low 70s over the eastern interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tomorrow morning, IFR, North Slope, Arctic coast, south of the mountains though, good VFR through much of the central interior until you get down to the Alaska Range, and south into the Talkeetnas, some IFR along the western Alaska Range, Kachemak Bay, Fognak and northern Kodiak Island areas, and then eastward in the western Gulf. Good VFR there, Copper River Basin, down to across the Panhandle, Dixon Entrance, and most of Cook Inlet, Matanuska, Susitna Valley, also VFR, marginal for the Aleutians. And then for tomorrow afternoon, IFR here persisting near Nunivak Island, northward across St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait, otherwise marginal VFR south of there to the Aleutians, southwest interior, most of the Seward Peninsula marginal tomorrow, IFR persisting especially on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range and southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, otherwise Kodiak marginal VFR in across the southern panhandle, that system lifting northward with the clouds and rain. Otherwise VFR, good conditions, North Gulf Coast here, Prince William Sound, all the way up to and off the Arctic coast. Then for Thursday morning, back into the IFR up there, eastern central Arctic coast there, back into the central North Slope, south of the Brooks Range or along the Brooks Range southward to the Tanana Valley here and back to the west, good VFR. Also the Yukon Delta and Kuskokwim Delta, at least part of it looks pretty good. Kuskokwim Valley and mountains though, marginal IFR still for the western Alaska Range, and a little more widespread up there toward Windy Pass on the south side of the range there. And looks like Prince William Sound and the eastern Kenai Peninsula, Passes Canal, IFR, back into the Gulf, northern Panhandle, IFR, southern Alaska Peninsula, IFR, and IFR here, northern Bering Sea up across St. Lawrence Island, right into the Seward Peninsula. And then for the afternoon, that pulls back a little more along the coast there, but still socked in around St. Lawrence Island, Marshall VFR, Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and patches IFR there on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, Alaska Range. IFR holding there, especially on the eastern slopes, and IFR, eastern Kenai Peninsula and western Prince William Sound along the mountains there, the Coast Range. Marshall VFR, Panhandle, becoming VFR farther to the south, IFR, eastern central Arctic coast. And Atuvik and Adigan look good tomorrow, wide open VFR conditions. And for Lake Clark and Merrill though, marginal VFR with again IFR likely here on both eastern approaches. And for rainy, marginal VFR going to be kind of on the northern edge, so marginal VFR at times. And windy though, VFR, Isabel and Mintesta, ceilings visibility is unlimited. Tanita, VFR. Portage, marginal VFR, gradually becoming IFR in the eastern entrance. And, whoop, get out of the way, Chilkoot and White, good VFR. And for the freezing levels, 8,000 feet here across the southeast coast, and now 6,000 feet up into the east central interior here. Continues to warm, and then 2,000 feet there back across Sitkinak, up and across Nunivak Island, and northward there, but west of the Bering Strait. And for icing, could be some areas of considerable moderate rime icing from northern Kodiak and Fognak Islands into Kachemak Bay there. Otherwise, light to isolated moderate back to the northwest all the way to the Bering Strait and southern Seward Peninsula. And also that moisture lifting northward, could be some considerable moderate rime icing above about 8,000 feet or so over the southern and southeast coast. And for the jet stream, upper level low here southwest of the Queen Charlotte's here, rotating that moisture band northward into the southern panhandle tomorrow. Otherwise, jet splitting right in this area here, southeasterly 70 to 90 knots across southwest interior, but notice the good ridging here from northwest Canada right in across the north central interior areas. 9,000 foot wind flow chart looking like this, southeast 25 off and along the coast of Prince of Wales Island. Otherwise, strongest winds 25 to as high as 40 knots here, southwest interior, 10 knots up to the northeast, and just 15 knots there for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Northwesterlies 25 to 35 out over the western Aleutians. And at 3,000 feet, 15 to 20 knots there, mostly along and off the coast of the Panhandle, and 15 to 30 knots here over the southwest interior, much lighter up to the northeast, 20 to 25 there coming in across the Alaska Peninsula, and 30 to 40 knot winds out west. With that, occasional moderate chop there for the western Aleutians, also from the Seward Peninsula down across the southern Kuskokwim Valley into Kachemak Bay.
Dual polarization technology is a major upgrade to the current radar system. It allows forecasters a better idea of what's actually out there and can help keep you safe.
Current radar technology transmits and receives information in the horizontal direction, which is very limited. Dual polarization technology, in addition to the horizontal, transmits and receives vertical energy, which allows forecasters to get information about the size, shape, and phase of the precipitation. We can use that information to better determine the precipitation type to expect at your given location.
There you have it. This new technology is currently being installed in radars across the country and is already being used by National Weather Service forecasters to produce better, more accurate forecasts. Learn more here and follow us. Want to know about the future of weather radar? Well, the National Severe Storms Lab has it here with its new phased array radar. Let's check it out.
It's a non-moving radar. It has 4 faces of the antenna, each pointing in different directions. One of the big advantages is that we're seeing so far, it can sample the area around the radar in less than a minute, maybe even a half a minute. And this is 5-6 times faster than what they can do today.
NSSL is leading the development of future weather radar with this project. Learn more here and follow us. The Storm Prediction Center is one of the NOAA weather partners. They are located in the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Greg Carbon gives us a glimpse into what the SPC does.
Our mission is to analyze and forecast severe thunderstorms and the potential for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds from those thunderstorms across the lower 48 states, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. One of the primary missions of the Storm Prediction Center is the issuance of severe thunderstorm and tornado watches across the country when conditions appear to be coming together to support the development of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes.
The world-class meteorologists in the Storm Prediction Center specialize in severe weather and keeping you safe. Learn more here and follow us.
The National Severe Storms Lab is working on increasing the lead time for severe weather warnings. The national average for tornado warnings is currently 13 minutes, but more notice would be helpful, especially for those in charge of moving large groups to shelter. Warn on Forecast will help forecasters issue hazardous weather warnings earlier. The project will give them more info about the chances of strong winds, large hail, and even tornadoes.
Currently, warnings are created by forecasters looking at the atmosphere outside, understanding its volatility, and then comparing that to how they see the Doppler radar presenting what's going on inside thunderstorms. Warn on Forecast is an idea where we're going to take the massive amounts of satellite, radar, and surface data and stick them all into a very high-resolution prediction model. And then by producing new forecasts every 15 or 20 minutes, the forecasters hopefully will be able to use that model to produce warnings that extend out to an hour.
Before the National Weather Service can use this tool, it must be developed and tested. One big challenge will be deciding how to get the model predictions to the forecasters.
I'm going to keep this one very low. I'm just adjusting the track.
These hazardous weather prediction models are going to produce a huge amount of output. And this fire hose of data is just too much for forecasters to handle in real time quickly. So in order to help deal with that, NSSL has developed a related project called Facets. And Facets is the methodology which will enable forecasters to focus very quickly on the most important threats.
Once Warn on Forecast and Facets are proven to be reliable and effective, then forecasters will be better able to inform you of threats nearby. Learn more here and follow us.
The Hazardous Weather Testbed is located at the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. It is used for experiments that will allow forecasters to learn and apply new technologies.
The Hazardous Weather Testbed is a really unique space throughout all of NOAA. And this is where the researchers and the operational folks come together in a common space to solve operational problems and to test new research tools that the research community is working on. The goal is to accelerate the transfer from research to operations of the newest tools and techniques.
People come from around the world to collaborate on this unique project.
And we can bring together not only NOAA people, but also university people, faculty, researchers, private sector meteorologists, folks working in other countries in meteorology, forecasters, can all come together and focus on what the problem of the day is with the forecasters.
Each spring, several experiments occur in the Hazardous Weather Testbed. Learn more here and follow us.
What are you looking at? And what are you ignoring? Did you notice the NOAA logo in the corner? Forecasters have a lot of information in front of them too. Every second counts during severe weather, and decisions about where to focus are constantly being made. This could be even more challenging in the future. Phased array radar will produce 4 to 6 times more information than what we have now, which brings us to the question researchers are hoping to answer. Will more radar information affect forecasters' decisions?
From our past experiments, we've learned a lot about how forecasters think during the warning decision process, but we've also learned that those thought processes are very complex, and for that reason, we need a better way to be able to track forecasters' cognitive activity.
Inbounds and possibly golf ball sized hail.
An eye tracker is a piece of technology that is used to determine in real time where someone's eye gaze is located. And these eye trackers are typically video-based, which means a camera sits below a computer monitor, and with infrared light and vector analysis, we can determine where a person is looking and how their eyes are moving.
Eye tracking is already being used in the medical field and air traffic control. Using similar research methods, NSSL is discovering the benefit for weather forecasting too. Phased array radar will give forecasters a lot more to think about. Understanding their decision-making process will help researchers develop even more user-friendly tools. So what's the benefit for you? Even better weather warnings. To learn more, check us out online and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, same thing going on. There was still a little bit of a southward movement of the pack ice here in the Chukchi Sea, but continuing to melt, especially south of the Bering Strait here. Not much left in the Bering Sea anymore. Still some shore fast here on the south coast of the Seward Peninsula, and melting forecast to continue for the next several days. Southeast winds 25 knots with 7 to 8 foot seas for the south coast of the Panhandle in response to that front that's swinging up from the south. Southeast picking up to 20 knots Clarence Strait. Light southerlies there for Stevens Passage. North 20 for Lynn Canal, and 15 knot winds here for the eastern and north coast. And then for Thursday, southeast winds 20 knots, 8 to 10 foot seas. And easterlies 20 knots, pick up to 25 knots on the south coast for Thursday with 11 foot seas in those areas. Otherwise, southeast 15 for Clarence Strait, southeast 10, Stevens Passage, south winds of 15, changing direction, but not all that strong, 3 foot seas in northern Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, north winds at 10 with slight seas, northeast 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, west side here, easterlies at 20 with seas up to 7 feet. And then small craft advisories here for the Barren Islands and Kachemak Bay for easterly winds and 8 foot seas. North winds 20 knots, south of the Forelands, northeast 20 to the north for Cook Inlet. And for Thursday, stays northeast 20 here north of the Forelands. Southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories come back in the picture there with east winds 25 knots. Gales for Kachemak Bay, a seas build to 10 feet, seas build to 12 feet with gale force winds for the Barren Islands, all out of the east, about 30 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast, southeast 30, 10 foot seas on the east side, and Prince William Sound, big increase in the winds there, east 30 knots with seas building to 6 feet. And for Kodiak Island, southwesterlies at 20, Shelikof Strait there, southeast at 15, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast 15, Castle Cape to Cape Sarachef, south 15. North side of the peninsula, small craft advisories as south winds increase to 25 knots. South 10 for King Salmon, Bristol Bay. And for the Thursday outlook here, 45 knot winds. That's a big jump there for the winds there for Bristol Bay. Northerlies 45 knots as that big storm tracks right just southwest of Kodiak Island in toward right about here or near or around maybe just east of Chignik. So northeast winds, 40 knots, good gales here on the north side of the peninsula. Storm force winds, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, southeast 50 knots. And again, northerlies 45 knots to the west on the southern Alaska Peninsula zones, and 40 knots out of the southeast for Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait east of 40. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow on Alaska Island, south 25, and then toward Nikolsky and back to the west a little southwest 20. West 25, central Aleutians, small craft advisories from Atka all the way out to Shimia with those 30-knot winds out west continuing through Thursday. 25-knot winds, Adak and Atka out of the west. And west 25, south of Unalaska Island, north 20, otherwise 15-knot winds back toward Nikolsky. And for the southwest coast, southeast at 20 tomorrow, east 20 for St. Lawrence Island and St. Matthew Island with 10-foot seas, southeast 20 for the Pribilofs with seas at about 7 feet. And then for the next day, big increase in the winds here, south of Nunivak Island, northeast at 40 knots, 10-foot seas, but only 20 knots with 6-foot seas for the Pribilofs. 15, St. Matthew Island, 20 knots north of Nunivak Island, and light winds there for Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island out of the east-southeast. And for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east at 15, east 20 on the west side, Cape Beaufort, Cape Thompson, northeast 20, then back to the east from Cape Thompson to the Bering Strait. Those drop off to 15 knots again here, and then pick up to 20 knots north at Cape Thompson. And brisk wind advisories for the remainder of the Beaufort Sea coastline, all out of the east at 25. And for tonight, fair, dry over the interior, maybe some low clouds, fog, and flurries there for the north slope and maybe the Arctic coast. Rain and clouds start to increase. First the clouds and then the chances for rain increase after midnight there for the southern panhandle. This front pushes the rain inland, light rain. Kodiak Island, kind of a wet, foggy night. Winds light, though, increasing chances of moisture for the Kenai Peninsula. Showers and breezy for the Aleutians. That continues into tomorrow as well. This front edging slowly to the east, but this next system will kick it northward and kind of really weaken it. There's the last part of it right there and the other part up here. Big storm coming up to the Alaska Peninsula. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.